Well, I get to that time of year when I just can't keep dodging the rain, and the video schedule starts to come under pressure because I keep thinking, well, it's a bit wet, I'll wait for it to dry, and it sort of doesn't happen. And I'm sort of getting into that transition now, and it means that, well, sometimes I just have to get out in the rain, and I think today's going to be one of those days. So I can't keep putting off moving my compost. I've certainly knocked a hole in clearing it from the couch grass, and I think this morning I'm going to carry on with that and start loading it straight into the barrow and start to spread it along some of these beds. My priority is always the pumpkin and squash bed because I like that to have the longest run in, but I don't know, we'll see how much I get rained on. Right, here it comes, better get a jacket. So this is a pretty straightforward process, and I've shown it before, but I'm happy to share again. So what I do is strip this back from one side, and I'll put the weights of the stones and things on the back, and that just keeps the membrane in place whilst I pull it over. Right, one there, one there, and it's always quite interesting to see what it looks like underneath here after a full season, and this is the first time it's been revealed, so let's have a go and see what it looks like. I've got a few wires that I pin it down with, which I've forgotten to take out. Let's just pull those out. And the main battle with this is just making sure the covers stay on in any high winds that we get during the winter months. But pretty much it survives, and I've never had any real big problems, although I have pinned it down a few times. Right, I think that's all the pins. Let's see what it looks like. Well, it looks like we've had Mr. and Mrs. Mole in the bed. Not that that's a problem, but they've certainly got in here. Let me show you. So there we have it, and it looks like they've come in from all angles, and I think it's a mole. Could be a rat, but anyway, we're going to fill it in and just make sure that it's nice and compact with no air gaps. And this, of course, is where the paving stones sat, so they chose that area as their, well, main grid, I guess, the focus. I would imagine all these go out and through the bed. So we'll give it a good press down and we'll put some more compost on top. So I'm just going to pull out any weeds that I can see. There's not a great deal in here. Definitely some mare's tail, which I can see, which hasn't come to anything because of course it's covered over. but there we go. Right, I'm just going to get my spade in here and break it up, just so that I know we haven't got air gaps everywhere. And then I'll give it a bit of a firm down, and then the new compost can just go on top. Weed wise, I've got next to nothing in here. There's one little thistle trying there, get him out. Otherwise, I've got a little bit of couch grass down in that corner, and it's clear everywhere else. Let's go. This dreadful edging from this membrane needs to come away, and I'll need to burn that off eventually. That gets it out of the way for now. Then I can just spread this, and I aim to get a good 2 or 3 inches on top, and that will flatten down as the winter goes along. Right, what do we got? 1, 2, probably 3 or 4 new barrows. I've been thinking hard about the couch grass in this compost. I think I probably am working too hard, and there's got to be a solution to it. So I've come up with a bit of a cunning plan. I'll share it with you when I've offloaded this. So just to remind you, the compost bins down here are next to a bank that's basically wild, and it's not an easy area to grow anything, so that's where I chose to put my bins. But of course, this couch grass grows through continually, doesn't matter what I do. I've even tried to put panels like this one along the back, and as you'll see when I get into there, where you can already see there's things growing out the side of it. So this area is so dominant in this couch grass, it's virtually impossible. And I was going to adopt an idea of adding a layer of grass clippings and allowing it to go anaerobic and trying to sort it that way, which seemed like a good idea. But I was laying in bed the other night, as you do, thinking about things that needed to be done, and I was thinking this area is used as a nursery and a bit of a dumping ground, and I certainly can do better than this, I think. And the things that I need to store, like these pots and bits of wood and various things that I think might come in handy, I could store them back over where I've got those compost bins, and then just reconfigure these pallets that I put together. I only put them together with cable ties, so that's not a big job. And if I can just get a bit of a line there, and then put a couple of sections in here, perhaps move the composters down a little bit and move that into the compost bins that have got the couch grass, and then effectively what I'll have is a area that I can wheel the wheelbarrow up and dump the horse manure or my own compost material straight in, and have 3 or 4 bays that have got easy access. And of course the big win here is that it's under this tree, and therefore couch grass doesn't grow. This is about the extent of what I get, which is a bit of normal grass. And that could probably save me an awful lot of time when I come to this part of the year and I need to spread all that compost. So I'm feeling like there's a big winter project to be done over there, and it's got a bit of a bonus because under that tree I won't get too wet and it's not too damp underfoot, so I'm thinking it'd be quite a decent project. Well, that's one of my winter projects sorted out anyway, and I've got another one with that patio. They're beginning to mount. That's a good thing. Good times. Well, that corner was quite hard, and it sort of sealed my decision. Out of this bed has come all that couch grass, and it's an unnecessary labour really. So that's it. Composting's going over there, and it might mean that I have to use this for receiving new horse manure when it starts to come, just so I can get on and work over there. But the couch grass won't grow into it in the winter, certainly not for a few weeks while I'm reconfiguring that. So yeah, it's really quite motivated me. It's nice when you come up with an idea that's going to save you labour. Good times. Well, I've gone from 3 layers to 1. And I'm talking about the clothes, not the compost. It certainly is pretty heavy work, but good exercise for you. And I know that every minute spent on this will be beneficial to the final outcome, which will be probably September, October next year. And that's what we do. We plan for each season a bit in advance. Well, a lot in advance, really. So I was talking to you about tomato seeds and how I was having difficulty finding the varieties that I want to grow, which is Lettuce and House. And Lettuce still seems to be very few and far between. I haven't found any. So I have progressed with saving my own seed, and I simply broke up the tomatoes in some water, pushed all the seeds out, took away all the skins, and then just strained it, popped it back in some water, and I'm going to leave it to ferment for a few days, and that gets rid of the outer jelly casing around the seed. And then wash that a few times, remove any mold that appears, and then dry, and then hopefully I'll have some Lettuce for next year. Now there is a risk, because I have 3 varieties of tomatoes in the polytunnel, that they've been in some way cross-pollinated. However, the Lettuce that I've taken were from very late tomatoes, and I think probably that didn't happen. So fingers crossed. I'm going to grow a few, see how they get on. So that's this area pretty much set. I'm not going to bother raking it too much. It'll flatten out on its own. Any bits down here, just hook them over. Get rid of some grass there, and there's another pin. And I'm just going to lay this over the top. Try and get this even, because hopefully it will stay in the one place for the whole season. It is a bit squelchy in here, I must admit. Right, I need to move that paver off the edge because it's restricting it somewhat. I think what I'll do is put it right down the bottom, just in case Mr. Mole or Mr. Ratty comes back. Right, it's a bit like making a bed, this. Okay, we'll put one on there and then give it a good tug. Where you've got any bumps, I've got a bump there, I'm going to push it down with my foot just so I can take up the slack. Right, and then we can pin this side in again. There we go, it's quite nice and taut. Get some of these pins in, and these pins do work out during the winter with the movement in the wind, but they do a reasonable job. I just try and go back in the same holes that I used previously. Occasionally you get a stone like that, which changes your mind for you. There we go, a couple more down here, and they get really bent out of shape. I'll bring a couple of these rocks from this side just to make sure it's extra secure, and then cover up the holes again, because otherwise they will just fill up with water, and there's plenty of water on this plot at the moment. And I think that's it, done for another year. I'll just tidy up that bog that I've created, and then he'll be on to the others. Everyone's quite an effort, but it's all about looking forward. Well, I don't know whether moles tend to move more in the autumn and winter, but my Mr. and Mrs. Mole are having a bit of a field day, literally. And they've decided to rearrange steps. That's the theme this year. And we've already had one step rearranged by the chicken coop, and now we've got one of the main steps rearranged. And they're just not content with being in one place. They've decided that they'll come along here as well. So I think there's probably quite a healthy mole population going on. Oh well, nature, eh? Well, I wouldn't say that's tiring or that I'm tired, but I just videoed the whole of that in time lapse, pointing in the wrong direction. So I think that's a good enough sign for me that it's time to call it a day. So if you've enjoyed today's video, why not like and subscribe? And if you'd like to see my uploads on a Wednesday and a Sunday at 8 PM, then click on the bell and you'll get notifications. So from a sunny and rainy Welsh plot, diolch yn fawr.